Hey boys, welcome back to some more Nrl Supercoach 2022. We're going to be continuing on with the positional discussions. Moving on to one of the most important positions, maybe, I don't know. Supercoach is sort of flipping around a little bit. In the past, the second row forwards were king, and you go probably back even further, and the front row forwards were massive. Back in the old days where you used to get two points every hit up, you didn't have to go over, over 8 meters, over 10 meters, I can't remember. I think it's over 8 meters, but back in the day, the front row forwards were king, and then the second row forwards, the locks, became sort of the big sticking point, probably dummy halves as well. And now it's flipped, that the halves, and always probably the fullbacks have come up as well. But the backline players just in general, and that's the way that is the way that the footy is going, I guess. More high scoring contests, for better or for worse. That's a totally different discussion. But you do sort of have to think about that when you're selecting your team. I think a lot of it now is looking for those guys that have that upside, the guys that can score tries because they're just so valuable, you know. Back in the day, like Dallas Johnson was one of the better players, you know, in Supercoach. I'm trying to think, was he like an absolute standout? But if you look at him, if he was around nowadays, he'd be okay at best, you know, because he just doesn't provide those attacking stats. But that's enough little rambling about that. Let's get into the second rows, because they are very important still. Like the second rows especially, they do potentially have that big upside. And we'll start off with the big man himself, Dave Fifita. 21% of people are going with David Fifita, and I can't persuade someone not to, because oh man, I don't think I had Fifita at all last year, which was a huge just kick in the guts. And then by a certain point, he was too expensive, and it was just a matter of principle that I thought he can't continue the tries. And then I would watch a Titans game, nothing would happen, and then all of a sudden he would just take a simple hit up, burst through 4 tacklers, and score a freakish try, and I'd be fuming. So I can't blame someone for going for Fifita, and he definitely, he's a guy that he averaged 85. Like the base is not that high, but he just, let's be honest, he's Tamalolo-esque in his prime, and he's out on the edge running at littler guys. He's running at the halves, he's running at the centers in those holes. He's a nightmare. So not having him can cost you big points, but he is so expensive compared to some other very good options. Now, you can see on the left-hand side, I am starting to fill the team, and I thought I would just, as I go through the positions, I would put in the players that I'm sort of more keen on, and just see how we stand. Now, I'm definitely not the team you see me lining up with. That's not going to be the final team. I'm definitely going to be switching up a lot more as the season gets closer. But it's just, again, I just want to go through sort of what we can sort of look at. That's why I got Hamlin Uali again. I'm not going to go into that. You can watch the front row discussions. But Fifita, yeah, it's tough not to have him. It's very tough not to have him. If you can fit him in the team without sort of sacrificing too much else, I actually think out of like the top echelon, you know, probably him, Cleary, and Tommy Turbo, I would probably say Fifita is more valuable to start the season. It's tough. I think Turbo is the least valuable just because of other players you can get. Cleary is close, but there's obviously an injury cloud, and also Fifita is like 250k cheaper, so there's a trade-off there. But he's tough not to have, and I'm definitely tempted. Isaiah Papali'i, I talked about him in the front row forwards. I'm not going to be going near him. I don't think he's going to be too much worse, but I can't see him doing what he did last year. That's all I'll say. I talked a lot about it in the front row discussion. Angus Crichton, honestly, I'm going to lock him straight in. He was probably one of my first choice players. I mean, Crichton has the base. Like, he's got very good base for a back rower, and he's got the upside. Not quite as high as Fifita. You know, he's, well, in saying that, I mean, Crichton actually does have that potential upside like Fifita. I mean, he scores a lot of tries. He makes a lot of line breaks. One of the top line runners in the comp. He's playing in a very strong Roosters team this year if it stays fit. Probably playing outside of, I don't know, Keary. Probably Keary, I think. Or Walker. Probably. I'd probably rather him outside of Keary, but it doesn't really matter. Crichton, he just finds a way. He was my first lock in, honestly, and I just think he's probably, out of him and Fifita, they're both very, very close. I would probably say Fifita probably tops it, but I mean, Crichton, he averaged 75. Very, very respectable in a pretty weakened Roosters team last year. Cameron Murray next. I'm very wary about all the Rabbitohs players to start the year. Just, you know, the loss of Bennett, I mean, it showed, like, I don't think the Rabbitohs are going to miss the top 8 or anything, but it's shown in, like, most other clubs, Bennett has left and they have regressed quite poorly. They've also lost Adam Reynolds. They've lost a couple other, you know, players in Sewer and a couple other guys. Like, they're a weaker team. They're still strong, and it doesn't necessarily affect a lock forward like Cameron Murray. I guess the added plus maybe is that he's captain this year. So, I mean, he always put in 110%, the old cliche. Like, he never not tried. So it's hard to think he could do too much more, but potentially with the captaincy, he might just, I don't know, he might put that like 60-minute a game up to like 70 plus. Who knows? He might take it personally, which would be quite something. But I just can't see it, because when he's out there for those 30-minute stints, he just puts in such tough work that it's hard for him to play longer minutes, really. But again, I can't fault someone for going him. Like, he's a bit cheaper than Crichton. He's a lot cheaper than Fifita. I think he's a very good player in real life and in Supercoach. He is a guy with upside. He does love a sneaky try. He's quick. He makes a line break or two, but I think there's better players for value, and the top echelon I would rather go at the moment. But like I said, as a captain, if Cameron Murray comes out and plays big minutes, because maybe he has to this year, then I could see myself going him, and I'm not surprised 13% of people are going him. Tohu Harris is unfortunately gone to the middle of the year. So that puts a line through him. Otherwise, I would have been very tempted to start with Harris, but obviously a no-go. Brandon Smith, did I talk him out in the dummy half department? Honestly, I don't know. It's a tough one with Smith. Obviously, going to the Roosters next year. I mean, he might play bigger minutes at lock. You know, no Dal Finucane. Harry Grant is clearly going to get the dummy half spot, so I wouldn't be adverse to picking out Smith later. Because he's missing round 1, I don't think it's worth the punt to have him sit on the pine for round 1. If he wasn't suspended, I would have loved to have picked him up first off, because I don't know. I feel like, again, I think he'll take it personally that it's his last year at the Storm. I know a lot of the BS that came out of that, and he said a few things he probably shouldn't have. And I think he's a guy, he'll come out and he'll work his ass off to go out on a high at the Storm. So I can see him having a big year at his final year at the Storm. But yeah, missing round 1, so I can't go there. Josh Curran, again, I'm going to lock him in with Tohu Harris out injured as well. That means Curran is probably going to play bigger minutes. He is a guy that's, he's shown his Supercoach pedigree. Like, he's not that big. He's not that quick, but he just has some skill. He gets a try. He's got offloads. Like, I really like Curran. Only 7%. I actually thought this would have been quite a bit higher for Curran, but I'm very keen on Curran. I think he'll at 586. Yeah, he finished the year very, very strongly. So he is expensive. Don't get me wrong, up near 600k, but I think it's worth it for Curran. I like him a lot. Luke Thompson, we talked about in the front row discussion. Yeah, I can't see him averaging that high again this year, though, honestly. Tyson Frizzell, Frizzell's a weird one. Like, I'm surprised he's so high up. I'm surprised he averaged 65 for the year. He's sort of always been a guy, especially the Dragons. I don't know. I think when he moved to the Knights, he actually improved quite a bit in terms of work rate. Like, I remember at the Dragons, he never ran the footy. Like, he would play these 80-minute games and run it like four or five times a game. But I think in the Knights, he's obviously picked it up a fair bit. But yeah, again, I just think there's better options for around the same price. The next guy I want to talk about, Pengai Jr., we've already talked about in the front row discussion. I think if you're going to pick him up, I think front row is the spot, potentially. Although, depending team lists, I could see myself swinging Pengai and picking up another forward or another front rower, but we've already talked about Pengai. I think he's a great pickup. Ryan Madison, he is very tempting as well. Obviously had some concussion issues at the start of the year. He was down on his best in general. He still averaged 65. He is way cheaper than his potential. I mean, he's been up around that 700k mark for sure. Like, he's been one of the top back rowers, and I'm extremely keen on Madison. It's going to be hard for me not to put him in. I'm trying to think who the Eels have got. Obviously, Madison. Is Niokore still there? Or is he left already? I can't remember if it's this year or next year. I gotta see an update of the team list. Nathan Brown is there as well. Sean Lane. I mean, I guess they do have a lot of forwards. That is the one issue I find. But also Isaiah Papali'i as well. So that's the only thing that concerns me with Madison is that is he. I think he will. I think Lane is sort of being shifted as more of a middle forward now, pushed back to the bench. But yeah, that's the only thing that worries me with Madison. Any sort of niggle, and they've got cover for him, and also he's leaving as well next year, I think, or he hasn't signed, I don't think, anywhere. But yeah, I'm tempted. I definitely like Madison. I think if he plays 80 minutes on an edge, you've got to get him. But it's just the worry of how many back rowers they've got, and also, I mean, the concussion is an issue. Like, as a forward with concussion history, it's tough. It's tough, and it's hard to see him getting through a whole season without picking up another knock to the head. Like, it's just hard to see that, unfortunately. Moving down here, Josh Jackson, I've never really looked too much at. Mitch Barnett, I mean, he was stellar for us last year. One of my best pickups at the start of the year. I wouldn't go there again this year. I mean, I love him as a player. Honestly, I think he's one of the most underrated forwards in the comp. Incredibly good, but I couldn't go there again because he's not going to be goal kicking, which he did a bit last year. Scored some nice points, and he scored quite a few tries as well, which I can't see happening again. Luciano Leilua also was pretty good. He was pretty solid last year, average of over 60, but again, he's sort of on the outer at the Tigers, obviously signed to the Cows next year. I don't think the Tigers are going to be scoring that many points, and that's really where Luciano scores his points in Supercoach, is attacking wise. So yeah, I mean, he is a guy that I like in terms of upside, but I don't think the Tigers are a team to really factor too much. Cameron McInnes is a guy that a lot of people are getting, and I can definitely see why. Probably going to be getting that lock spot at the Sharks. I mean, he hasn't played in a season, so it is a bit of a gamble, just with the injury. But he's a Supercoach gun. Like, he's way down on value for what he is. And it's a matter of, do you pick him up in the back row or hooker? I gotta be honest, I've got Grant at the moment, but I am so tempted to forgo Grant because Grant's suspended for round 1 anyway. Pick up McInnes at dummy half, save an extra 120 odd K or 10,000, and then use that money elsewhere. And then, you know, because I do think McInnes can average similar to the top dummy halves. I think Grant will be a step ahead, but I don't know. It's hard not to have a gun dummy half in round 1, and I think McInnes is he's almost a must-have, honestly, at that price. So it's either dummy half or back row, and I'm undecided at this point. I'm very undecided at this point in time. Going down, Harry Naira. I mean, again, these guys, Hudson Young as well, very good. There's a lot. I mean, look at all their average. They're all around like the 60. You know, tough to leave out. There's so many options. That's why I love the back row. There's so many options that you can go, and if you get them on a year where they just have a try-scoring year, then you're sitting pretty. So if you take a punt on one of these guys, any of them, Harry Naira, Hudson Young, I mean, Schuster, I'll talk a bit more about Schuster in the 5'8 department because I think that's where you should pick Schuster up. But Keon Kalamatangi as well, Kickow potentially. I mean, Kickow had a poor season last year, which is weird to say because the Panthers won the comp. But Kickow, I don't know. Kickow didn't really seem like his best. He had a lot of like little niggles, I felt, and yeah, just not quite there. I think, honestly, I'm honestly pretty tempted with Kickow as well because there's no Capel at the Panthers this year, so you would think, again, I got to look at their team lineup, but I would think Kickow maybe gets more minutes now. It's going to be him and Martin, you would think, on the edge, and previously it was like, they sort of rotated, like it started like Capel, Kickow, and then Martin would come on for Kickow, and sometimes Capel would go off, so it was always a little bit hard to pick them. But if Kickow plays more minutes, like, he's gonna score tries. Like, he's the guy you want. Like, the upside's there. So I'm tempted. I'm gonna look at their team. I'll look at who's on the bench, and I think he's a pretty good pod, honestly. I think he's a smoky for a bounce back year. Connor Watson, outstanding last year, but he's gone to the Roosters as a utility, so it's a no-go there. Ola Kawatu was one of my better pickups last year. Very, very good for me. I think, again, it's a there's so many options, dude. There's so many options. Like, I love Ola Kawatu. I'm so tempted by him. Honestly, he's Kickow incarnate, honestly. They're very similar players, and I think probably Ola Kawatu maybe edges him because I think Ola Kawatu is more guaranteed of 80 minutes. And you know, anyone playing in a team with Tommy Turbo, there's going to be points to be had, and he's a try-scoring back rower. So, it's going to be a toss-up. Kickow or Ola Kawatu? I don't know. I'm sort of leaning towards Ola Kawatu now that I look at it. It's tough. Going down, I mean, Brown has fallen quite a lot, and again, I couldn't go Brown even though he can be a gun, but I think, again, the minutes, he suffered. I mean, he just always has niggles now. I think the high impact sort of catching up with Brown, and he's just not quite able to put out those big minutes anymore. So I couldn't go Brown. Also, with their forward depth, it's just a no-go there, in my opinion. Going down the list, anyone else catches the eye? Jack Bird we'll talk about in the centre wing because obviously you can pick him up there, and I think that's a good spot. Tino, 14% have Tino. That's surprising, honestly. I think he got announced as captain just recently as well. So maybe people are going off that and thinking he might have a bigger year, which potentially, I don't know. I just think there's better value elsewhere. I just think there's better value in like Kikau, Olakau'atu at the similar price. Even you go down here, Ewan Aiken will also talk about in the centre wing. Jason Tamalolo. Honestly, I'm putting him in the team. I cannot... I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they put him into the front row, but like, dude, Tamalolo, I am tipping Tamalolo to bounce back big time this year. I would be shocked. If he doesn't have a barnstorming season. Like, he was disappointing last year. He only played the 15 games. His average was 55. Like, when is the last time he has been down this low? Like, this is unheard of. He's going to have a big year. Mark my words, Tamalolo is going to be massive this year for the Cows. I don't necessarily think the Cowboys are going to be good, or at least I don't think they're going to be as bad as people think. But I don't think they're going to be good. But Tamalolo, he's going to have a big year. Yeah, I've got to lock him in there. There's so many good options, and honestly, I might stack my back row. I might stack the back row and go real cheap in some other positions, but yeah, they're sort of my top three at the minute, but that could change very quickly. Actually, I don't think these are going to change, honestly. Tamalolo and Crichton, I think, are locks, and then Curran, I'm pretty confident on. Some really good players, but we go down the list. Anyone else sort of catch the ire? Jai Arrow is very, very tempting. Probably more in the front row. Like, again, there's so many good back rowers that I think if you're going to pick up Jai Arrow, pick him in the front row. And I know in my original team I did have him. Did I have him in the back row? I can't remember, but I would love to squeeze him in, and maybe I do, but who do I get rid of? That's the question, dude. Who do you get rid of? You also save a bit of money if you go Arrow over one of the, if you go him instead of Pengai, but I'm just not confident of the minutes. I'm not confident of the minutes. Or Pat Carrigan. Oh, I just saw Carrigan, and now that's peaked. That's piqued my interest. I think Carrigan is an absolute star, and he obviously only played the 8 games, suffered a season-ending injury. He should get that starting lock spot, and he should play big minutes. Like, he is a genuine gun in Supercoach. So, how do I fit him in? I'm very, very high on Pat Carrigan. Yeah, very high. I guess the only issue with the Bronx is that they do have very good forward depth. They got a lot of young guns coming through. They got some old heads there still, but Carrigan, I think, again, I mean, I actually thought maybe he was a smoky to be the captain this year. He did it a fair bit before he got injured, and I thought maybe they would go with him over Reynolds, but yeah, I'm tempted with Carrigan. Oh, that's tempting. Honestly, I'm gonna slot him in at the moment. There's so many good options. Even like a Liam Martin. I'm pretty tempted with, because he should, like I talked about with Kikau, there's no Capewell. Surely Martin plays 80 minutes on an edge, and he's a very good player. A very good Supercoach player. I don't know the minutes. I don't know if it's going to tell me. I don't have Supercoach Gold. But okay, I tried to have a look. Yeah, without Supercoach Gold, you can't really look at all that sort of stuff. So that's all right. But I do like Martin. It went back to the hookers, annoyingly. But let's look at the cheapies. Let's look at some cheapies that are on the radar. Anyone sort of catch the interest? We do need some cheapies. There's a couple of Shannon Harris and Jack Horwath. I know Horwath has played some games, hasn't he? The name sounds familiar. Brendan Pecora is he's fairly well owned. I mean, he's a star coming through. Obviously, how many games is he going to play this year? How many minutes? You know, he's not bad to have, probably just as that bottom dollar cheapie if he does end up jagging some more minutes, and he's going to get some nice price rises. So yeah, I don't it makes sense for people to get him. Ben Trebojevic, every year everyone just goes Ben. He is nice because he's centre wing and second row forward. He actually did play some games last year, but like barely any minutes, so I don't know, who knows, maybe he's going to actually play some minutes this year. So again, he's a good sort of bottom range cheapie. Joe Simpson, he actually played 11 games. He played 11 games last year. I mean, he was a good player, but ever since going to the Doggies, I don't know, he sort of lost his mojo, and I think he's not going to get too many more minutes with that Dogs pack anymore. Tepa Moroa is also very, very popular, and yeah, I can see why. Like, he's a good player in general. I don't see him getting too many minutes, but yeah, I don't mind him. Also a cheapie to pick up. Probably, honestly, he's probably better to have in the front row as a cheapie, I would maybe say. But it doesn't really matter too much. Also, I just noticed that my team got wiped annoyingly. Who else have we got here? Anyone else? I mean, Jed Cartwright's played a few games. There's not too many. I mean, Havili potentially. I mean, honestly, he was pretty good at the Raiders. Like, when he played some minutes, he scores pretty well. So I don't know. Maybe the Rabbits might use him in the middle a little bit. So potentially a decent cash cow there, depending on team selections. And then Sean Bloor, unfortunately. Geez, bad news coming out just recently. He's done his ACL again, so you can put a line through him. That actually made, like, Tuolangi is another young guy at the Tigers, and they're apparently very thin on the back rowers. So maybe this guy Kalma Tuolangi gets a sneaky spot potentially. But other than that. Another guy very popular, Ethan Bullimore. I talked about him on my first team. Like, I love him as a player. He's going to be a Queensland star in the future. I can't see him getting too many minutes at the Seagulls, and honestly, the price is just a little bit too high at the moment. I feel like Jake Trebojevic is playing 80 minutes a lock. I mean, maybe he plays decent minutes like in the front row, but. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that tempted by him. I love him as a player, but I just can't see him getting the minutes. So 25% of people are going him though. Targo, we'll talk about in the center wing, and then that's pretty much it. Talakai. Oh, Talakai, dude. Man, he went on some roller coasters. He went on an absolute roller coaster last year. He was like, honestly, I think he was a center wing last year as well, though, which was nice. But he went on some absolute tears when he played big minutes in the back row. So honestly, he's a guy to keep your eye on team list, because if he jags like a back row spot, he's a good pickup. But I don't. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he jags a starting spot, but he's a beast, that's for sure. But that'll probably do it. We could talk about a lot of other. Oh no, there's one more guy I haven't talked about. There's one other guy. Where is he? Reuben Cotter. There he is. The guy that's probably going to be playing lock at the Cowboys. Again, it depends on team list. If Tamalolo stays at lock, then Cotter is a no-go. But if he gets the lock spot, he's a certainty in my team for sure. So yeah, I'll fix it up. I'll put the back rollers back in. But yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying the Supercoach discussion videos. It's always a lot of fun. I just love talking about footy, talking about Supercoach. Make sure to like and comment, and I'll see you guys in the next ones for the halfback discussion. I'll see you guys then.